So this is by my friend Anna, the lady who set up the permaculture garden. And she gave a talk earlier this year to our larger group, Sustainable Thornbury. And I asked her if she still had the presentation, and she did. And she said, yes, please use this. It makes sense. You know, why reinvent the wheel when there's something already there? So some of the slides are a bit in depth about permaculture. So I probably skip a little bit over those unless you have particular questions. If not, and then it goes into about the garden and how it looked and the history, a short history of it. Then after the presentation, we've got some photos of what it looks like now. And then I've got a few extra personal points that I'm going to bring to it. So yeah, there we are. So this slide is, as it said, what is permaculture? Whatever book you pick up about permaculture will have a different definition. It is that broader thing. But, you know, the main thing that came from it is that permaculture, the actual term, came from permanent agriculture. And then that changed to permanent culture. It originated in Australia in the 1970s from two gentlemen looking back into the indigenous cultures around the world and seeing how they still farm, how they look after things. And obviously some of that knowledge that we've now lost. So from that, they've combined it with ecology, all of the technology that we have nowadays, and a design thing. Some people use permaculture as a design system, and they can apply it to almost everything in their life. I only actually use it with regard to the gardening concept. Next slide. And these are the principles that at the very center, you've got the 3 ethics, which is what permaculture is all about. Care for the earth, care for people, and fair share. So, and within each of those, it then kind of spreads out. So you've got all of the different principles going all the way around. Some people use these religiously, and, you know, everything has to fit, you know, all of these principles, or it has to fit one of them. Again, it depends how strict you want to be about it. Most of them I find are quite common sense, like observe and interact, pay attention. Obviously, if you've got a brand new site, it'd be quite wise to actually have a look and to see first before you did anything, to observe, just a common sense thing like, where does the sun come up? Where is the shade? What type of weather, climate, wind, all of those sorts of things. So like I said, a lot of these are very common sense things. There's use and value renewables, reduce dependency on scarce resources. So again, that would incorporate seed saving, water saving, making your own compost, all of those things that permaculture actively tries to encourage people to do. You've got use and value diversity. Don't plant just one crop. Monocultures are not permaculture. We try and involve lots of different crops, sometimes have the same type of plant. And again, that you're mimicking nature in as many ways as possible, and that's what nature would do. Does anyone have any question on this particular slide? It can be a bit scary. No? Right, fine. Next slide. And this is where you're reaching out with permaculture. You've got the ethics in the middle, you've got the 12 principles around it, and then leading out from there are all of the different areas it can go into. Education and culture, finance, land and nature stewardship. Like I said, you can apply it to an awful lot of different things. Next slide. This was when Anna talked about why she chose Thornbury, where she did her permaculture training, which was at Tin Bath House in Stroud. So that was just a map to give people a kind of an idea as to where that all came from. Next slide. And these are pictures of the care home. So the one on the left-hand side, you can see it's a really odd shape. Where, if you look at that picture, we're in the bottom part of it, where there's like a round umbrella, a white roof, and then it's like a patio area. So yeah, we're in there. And then the other picture is a close-up of it. And the bottom photo is just basically what the site looked like. So on the left-hand building is the dining hall for the residents. And the right-hand one are some bedroom windows looking out. There's a patio area and there's a summer house there. So we were granted permission to put the permaculture garden in that area. Next slide. So Anna talked an awful lot about a book called by Maddie Harland, who is the editor of Permaculture magazine, called Fertile Edges. I would encourage you all to read it if you can. It's basically, I think it's 10 years worth of her editor's page that she does at the beginning of each permaculture magazine. And it's really, really good to actually see how things have changed over the years and some things that we'd forgotten had happened and her response to that. So there was a bit of a talk about that book. And then there is a history of how the permaculture came about, of Anna making contact with local groups. Where can I do a permaculture garden? And then in February 2022, getting permission from South Gloucestershire to use the land for a community garden. And then in March, she heard from Thornbury Composting Centre, which is a volunteer-led group, that we could take free compost and wood chips for the permaculture garden for as long as we needed. April is where Anna did the 5 no-dig beds. I explained this to you, Emma, when you came along, 4 using the lasagna method and 1 the ordinary no-dig one. I think I explained this on Friday, but the lasagna method is where you use you have the lawn, the grass, you put I think it's cardboard, wood chip, or it might be wood chip, cardboard, soil on it, and you let that kind of bed down. And then because you've got the soil there, you grow straight into it. The same with the other no dig bed, but that was just cardboard and soil, so cardboard and compost. So as I think I said on Friday, the one that is just cardboard and compost with no wood chip is the one with all the herbs in, and they're doing fantastically well. But again, we have to see if that's because that's just the right position for them and they're herbs, and you know they're quite what's the word, hardy plants, so they're doing really well, or whether it's because of how things were done. It could be that in a year or two's time the lasagna method is more active, that the wood chip has integrated more into the soil, but we will see. Anyway, June 2022, we joined Sustainable Thornbury, which is our umbrella group, which is really good because then we can apply for funding, because Sustainable Thornbury has a bank account we can use and they have a constitution, things like that, that when you're applying for grants, people like you to have. So that was really good that we've got that structure behind us. In July 2022, because we were on South Gloucestershire land, we had to set up a volunteer agreement and there was a risk assessment done. I've signed a volunteer agreement together with Anna, so we're the only 2 who can actually lead volunteers as such. So people can't just turn up out of nowhere and start doing work. There has to be either me or Anna there. And in February 2023, we had some grant funding come through for the building of the sensory garden, which is our latest project. Next slide. This is the page again, which I think Anna, when she was doing her talk, went into a bit more, but we've already covered that. So if people are, you know, all okay with that, then, and have no questions, I will move on. So this is us using the principle of small and slow solutions. So this is the garden as it was before Anna did any work. Next slide. And this is one of the decision-making things. So this is where Anna did the 5 no-dig beds. And you'll see at the side where she actually decided, you know, what she'd actually found out. So she saw the soil was clay. She wanted the design to try and mimic the way the building was set out. And Thornbury Compost donated the soil. She used paving slabs all the way around the actual beds, came from the care home centre from paving they had done on the driveway. So that was recycled. A lot of the plants were grown from seeds. They were, and the herbs were bought. I think South Gloucestershire gave us a budget of £50 to start off when they gave us permission to use the site. And then this is what we originally grew in the first year. So lots of different bits and pieces. Next slide. So that's the way the no-dig beds looked on July the 26th. You can see some have come on and thing. And then again, this is the sensory garden that we've started. So we've come from the side of the summer house and the patio, and we've created 2 beds on either side of an access path for us. So yeah, so you can, all the wood chip is down. So everything had cardboard put down, then loads of compost brought in, and then all the plants went in that. And obviously you can see the difference in the top left-hand photo of where cardboard hasn't gone down. And that's still the original grass showing there. And then next to it, the soil. Next slide. Another picture of our no-dig beds. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of Nigella was in one bed on the right-hand side that self-seeded itself, but we really liked it, so we kept it there. The very tall red plant is red aurak, which when it first comes out like that, the leaves are very tender and are used instead of spinach. It's actually a really old plant from the Mesolithic era they found fossils for. And they think, you know, early humans might have actually eaten some of the actual, the leaves and things like that. So it is it's an amaranth from that genus of plant. So I know amaranth is being looked into for its grains. So, yeah, it's quite a useful plant. But again, that self-seeds everywhere. Next slide. Yeah, the left-hand one is the photo that I came across last week when I turned up at a permaculture garden. We had a delivery of some wood chip that was donated, and some of the care home residents thought that would be quite funny to put that in. And on the right-hand side, you can see how the bed has now been finished. One of the flower beds for the sensory garden around the summer house. As well as that, there's 2, so we've incorporated the initial bed that was there, but we've also brought 2 climbing plants that the residents voted for. We've bought those and put those there as well. So hopefully as time goes on, they will weave more and more around the summer house. Right. Next slide, if there is one. So that's all of the different groups that have helped us with regards to the permaculture garden. And that was basically telling everyone when we actually meet.
Awesome. I think that is the last slide. That was brilliant, Emma.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, so it was a quick, speedy way through. So anyone have any questions on any of that?
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah. So when did you start then, Emma? When did you begin the planting and the work?
Anna started the planting and work last April, so April 22.
Yeah.
So she was allowed to have extra people with us once that volunteer agreement got in place.
Yeah.
which I think was July.
Yeah.
And then I started, I think it was September
Yeah.
last year.
Oh, so it's really
So
young, isn't it? Really
yeah,
young.
very much so, very much so.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
normally have two or three volunteers. It's basically all it is once a week.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so we
Yeah.
have between 4 hours between us all to 6 hours between us a week to spend on
Mm.
it.
Not long, is it?
No, but that time, by the time you've got there, had a chat as you
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
up with everyone, and then people
Yeah.
decide what they want to do and what's left of the jobs, and that can take half an hour quite easily, and then
Yeah.
you're out doing things.
Absolutely.
Obviously, weather dependent. We've had some really hot days when I've been
Yeah.
there, so some people either haven't come or they
Yeah.
left after an hour. It's got too hot because a lot of the site is actually in full sun. So we've got to be mindful of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the other way around. It's been wet.
Have you got water there? I can't remember now from.
Yeah. Well, we have mains water that the care home supplies to us, which is obviously, again, a real benefit.
Yeah.
We have got a water butt, but it hasn't been installed yet. But that'll be the next thing, to have some of our own water. Because we are conscious that when you use a hose, it's quite, what's the word? You have no idea how much water you're using,
No.
and it has been quite hot a few times. So we've been watering for sometimes 30 minutes. That's a lot of water to put on a garden. But we're only doing that because it's the plants were new. Although we
Yeah.
planted a lot of drought tolerant plants, we also don't want them to die, because we've just planted them and haven't watered.
We came across these Oya things, OLLA. They're like have you come across those? I think they use them in places like Spain and really hot
I've heard,
countries.
the clay pots you put in the soil. That's
Yeah,
it.
a clay container. Yeah, so I think they've started using those at them at Alice Park, and it's supposed to be, quite good. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think you can do. I saw a little diagram somewhere. I don't know. I was looking at you can do it with clay pots, but I'm not
Oh, right,
quite sure
okay.
how that works. I think it was like one clay pot on top of another, but you'd have to like block up the hole. Yeah, and I don't know how you'd seal them. But that would be because I think they're fairly expensive to buy. I think you have to. They're kind of shipped.
Yeah.
In. I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping not to water the garden at all, apart from if it rains.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole point. We want it to be low maintenance and it to basically look after itself. As soon as you start having to water things, you're using a really a resource, aren't you? That it's not never ending. So the more that we can get the plant to kind of survive whatever the weather throws at them, the better. I would thoroughly recommend is I have a very large notebook that I basically put down everything I do every week, down to volunteers, down to what we did, the weather conditions. Sometimes I list the plants that we do stuff with, sometimes I don't, but I have this as a backup. I mean, I normally do a short summary on Facebook, but obviously not as detailed. And that's also got in it some different guides I picked up along the way about what plants are good for butterflies, things like that, that I just find it's useful, like to go back if someone said, oh, what did you plant in May? I can actually go back and look at that. So I would thoroughly recommend doing something like that. My other personal notes are my personal observations since I've been dealing with the permaculture garden are make a note of everything if you can. I always think, oh, I'll do that later, or I'll do it tomorrow. But if you don't do it straight away, you'll forget something, guaranteed. So I've already been through a note of everything. Because it's my own personal book, I also put down my thoughts as well. Different decisions that are made. Obviously, I'm dealing with a group of volunteers. Even though there's only a few of us, we still try and do things democratically, and I also ask people for their opinions. So my idea might actually not, that we're planning on going along with might not actually happen, because there's a reason for them, and someone else has come up with a really good idea, like, oh, I hadn't even thought of that. So that's a really good thing with having a group discussion of like, everyone's views are important. So going on with my personal thing, promote as much as you can. I've basically had our garden entered in the RHS It's Your Neighbourhood Award. So I had an RHS judge come round in July and talk to me. It was his first permaculture garden, so that was an interesting one. But I must say he understood loads of the terms. The RHS are quite forward thinking now about, things to do with drought tolerant plants, climate change, all those sort of things. So they, he was quite on the ball. So that was very good. So I find out in October how we did with that.
Oh,
I've invited our local mayor to come along and help on a volunteer session. Anything to get people talking about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I had Avon Wildlife Trust come along. Emma and Sophie came along and talked to us about that. And if we're lucky, we might get a little article. Is that right, Emma? Yeah, we might have a little article in the membership magazine. Again, promotion and spreading the permaculture word. And because I'm a member of the Permaculture Association, I've made sure that our permaculture garden is on their map. So they actually have a map of all of these things. Now, to join a permaculture association costs £3 a month. So quite a nominal fee. But and of course, with that, you get access to loads of different resources. And like I said, you have access then to their land map and different gardens all across the UK. There's quite a few forest gardens, things like that.
Oh, right,
So those sort of things. Going on from that, my other thoughts were drop expectations at what can be done, but you've been doing this a long time, so you're probably a bit like that, because I watch too many RHS Chelsea shows, on the TV, and I come to the garden and I thought, oh wow, let's do this, and people say, well, where are the extra 30 people then that are needed for that, and the £30,000 to do it, but so I've had to lower expectations. Obviously you understand that nature, people, and life often gets in the way of sometimes your plans.
Definitely.
There's always a solution around a problem. So there's never any problems as such. There's just something you maybe have to think about doing a bit differently. I had put down there, accept gifts and incorporate them as much as you can. I'm going to amend that now and say, think about any gifts you receive as to whether they're useful or not. And then I put share ideas, manpower and tools. The care home has recently set up a gardening club for its residents, inspired by the residents watching what we do on a Thursday morning. So obviously I've given them access to our tools, and if they want any help, advice, anything like that. I also put down some of the, not negatives, but things you have to accept, because where obviously it's all volunteers. It's a real shame when you find someone who's, really enthusiastic and can do this, and you could think, oh, brilliant, she could go off and do this, and I don't have to sit and explain it to her. But that's just how things are. People can come and go. And yes, those are all my thoughts. I think I've ticked off everything. But any other questions at all about the permaculture and my...
I really like the small, slow solutions, like, don't rush in with. I think that's really important, because I think you're, you just kind of want to go in there and do it. But to go slowly.
Yes, because
Which
that's how nature
thought-
normally is, you know, and again, it's mimicking that. So until you know your site really
Yeah.
well, and of course, back in, you know, they got all their knowledge or their information from indigenous cultures. So indigenous cultures don't normally move. They're
No.
normally in place. So they know their land, they know the seasons, they know their plants, you know, totally. Whereas us, we normally get given a piece of land and then we're like, oh, well, I want it to be like this. Well, actually, is that the right thing for it, you know? But yeah, I've had to learn to be patient, not in my nature, but I'm learning, you know, because that's the best way to be, you know. Why wash and then put a plant that really isn't going to be happy in that place? You know, we all know, you know, that's not going to work.
Moving things around.
Did you know much about the soil of the area, the site, or did you rely on local knowledge? It's clay, was it?
And Anna did a bit of work and said it's always been there's nothing been built on there before, which is always handy. It's next to a school playing field as well. So along one of the boundaries of the site, around the other side of the care home, there's a really old hedge, which is useful. So that's actually where most of the wildlife lives. What we're trying to do is, with the ecology report we got from Esther, is to try and encourage them to come out of that hedge and into the wildlife corridors and into our garden more, you know, if we possibly can. Yeah, so that's what we're trying to do. But it's good that we've got that. It's quite long, actually, very tall, a mixture of trees and plants, basically a really big overgrown area. That's the boundary. So yeah, it's good we've got that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's kind of next for you, do you think, kind of in terms of all the ideas you have about permaculture? Do you have like a vision of where you want to take that?
We've got ideas for the next projects for obviously we want to try and do a bit more in the sensory garden. So we finished one bed now. So we're talking about applying for funding to put some more grasses in on the other side of that path. We're thinking about a herb spiral because we thought that might be relatively cheap, inexpensive, and easy to do. And again, that would be something a bit different, a focal point, and it would be near to the kitchen, so the chef can, you know, come out and actually have some of that. Yeah, there's all different things. I mean, eventually we want to actually link up where the sensory garden is through to where the no-dig beds are. And that's quite a bit of space. So I think it'll be an ongoing thing. So every couple of months, I think we'll try and add slowly to it so that it slowly grows, is the idea. Let's see what happens.
It'll be really exciting to see what happens. Well, thank you so much for attending, and thank you so much, Emma. That was a really, really great talk. Learned a lot.
That was great.
I hope you have a good evening. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, bye-bye. Lovely to meet you today.